They saw the wig. Good, that was the point.
She was the most dangerous political prisoner in 16th century Europe. A queen who ruled Scotland at 6 days old, who married the King of France at 15, who survived the murder of her secretary, 56 stab wounds in front of her face while 6 months pregnant, who escaped a castle prison by rowing across a loch in the dark, who ran a cipher intelligence network from inside an English country house for 19 years, while Elizabeth's most sophisticated spymaster watched her every move. History calls her a tragic martyr, a beautiful Catholic queen destroyed by her Protestant cousin and her own romantic weakness. The crimson dress, the block, the tears of a doomed woman. The 2023 decryption says otherwise. 57 letters, hidden in the French National Library for 4 centuries, misfiled, forgotten, deciphered by codebreakers using techniques that did not exist when she wrote them.
50,000 words of decrypted text reveal not a passive victim, but an active intelligence operator, conducting cipher diplomacy, managing a secret communication network, providing strategic instructions to the French ambassador, attempting to bribe Elizabeth's officials, doing all of it under the surveillance of Sir Francis Walsingham, the most paranoid spymaster in Europe. The historians who decrypted the letters reached one conclusion. She was too smart to mention assassination plots in these communications. She knew where the line was. For 19 years, she stayed behind it. And then, in 1586, she crossed it. One letter, hidden in a beer barrel, explicit authorization for Elizabeth's assassination. The question forensic historians have spent 4 centuries asking is not whether she crossed the line, it is whether she knew she was being watched when she did.
19 years. I ran the network for 19 years without a fatal error. Walsingham broke other ciphers. He never broke mine, not the ones that mattered. The Babington letter was different. I knew the method had been compromised. I used it anyway. Draw your own conclusions.
It is February the 7th, 1587, Fotheringhay Castle, Northamptonshire. Mary Stuart has been Elizabeth's prisoner for 19 years, 1 month and 20 days. Tonight, she has been told that tomorrow morning she will be executed. She spends the night writing her will, distributing her possessions to her servants, writing a letter to the King of France, and the detail no romantic account ever includes, choosing with precise deliberation exactly what she will wear: the crimson bodice, the crimson petticoat, the crimson sleeves, the Catholic liturgical colour of martyrdom. Underneath the black outer dress, she will remove on the scaffold to maximum theatrical effect. She has been staging this moment for 19 years. Every element is chosen. Every gesture is rehearsed. The performance she is about to give will be watched by witnesses who will write it down. Those accounts will travel across Catholic Europe within weeks. And what they describe will be the image of a martyr, not a traitor, not a conspirator, a queen in crimson, kneeling for her faith.
The primary legal basis for Mary's 19-year imprisonment was a collection of documents called the Casket Letters. 8 unsigned letters, 2 marriage contracts, a series of sonnets, allegedly written by Mary to the Earl of Bothwell, her 3rd husband and her 2nd husband's presumed murderer, proving she conspired in Lord Darnley's murder. Modern historians widely consider them forgeries. The letters were unsigned, produced by Mary's political enemies, the Scottish lords who had stolen her throne and needed a legal basis for their coup. Presented to an English inquiry that delivered a verdict of deliberate ambiguity, neither convicting nor clearing Mary, because Elizabeth needed the letters to justify imprisonment without needing them to justify execution. The lie served its purpose precisely. Mary was imprisoned for 19 years on the basis of documents her enemies almost certainly fabricated. And when she finally, genuinely authorized an assassination, 19 years later, the forged evidence had already made her execution politically inevitable. The lie came first. The truth arrived 19 years too late.
The letters were not mine. I said so at the time. I said so for 19 years. No one with the power to act believed me, or they believed me, and it made no difference. Those are not the same thing. I noted the distinction.
In 2023, a team of codebreakers led by George Lasry published the decryption of 57 letters written by Mary between 1578 and 1584. The letters had been in the French National Library for 4 centuries, misfiled, catalogued under the wrong name. The cipher she used was sophisticated. Homophones, multiple symbols for common letters to defeat frequency analysis, a nomenclature of graphical symbols for high-value names and places, meaningless nulls inserted to create false patterns, a system designed by someone who understood, at a technical level, exactly how Walsingham's codebreakers worked and how to defeat them. The 50,000 words of decrypted text show Mary providing direct strategic instructions to the French ambassador, analysing Elizabeth's court politics with precision, attempting to bribe English officials, documenting her own operational failures and successes with the detachment of a professional intelligence analyst reviewing her own files. She was not a passive prisoner. She was an active, shrewd, and calculating political agent who managed a sophisticated intelligence network from inside captivity for years, without a single fatal error. The most sophisticated surveillance apparatus in 16th century Europe watched Mary Stuart for 19 years and missed 50,000 words of active intelligence operation sitting in a French archive waiting to be found.
He watched. I worked. Walsingham believed a prisoner could not be a threat. That was his error. I made no equivalent assumption about him.
The Babington Plot of 1586 was the correspondence that finally caught her. Anthony Babington, a young Catholic gentleman, wrote to Mary outlining a plan to assassinate Elizabeth and place Mary on the English throne. Mary's response, written in cipher and hidden in a beer barrel smuggled past her guards, explicitly authorized the assassination. Walsingham intercepted the letter, deciphered it, and had his own agent add a postscript asking for the names of the conspirators. Mary did not provide the names. That detail is documented. But her authorization of the murder of a sitting monarch was unambiguous. She was convicted. Elizabeth signed the death warrant, wept while signing it, then claimed she had not intended it to be delivered. Mary had used beer barrel correspondence before. Walsingham had broken beer barrel correspondence before. The decrypted letters confirm she had detailed knowledge of his surveillance methods. She was the most careful intelligence operator in 16th century Europe for 19 years. And then she wrote the most incriminating letter of her career, using a method she had reason to believe was no longer secure. Either she made the one catastrophic error of a 19-year career, or she made a calculated decision that a martyrdom was more achievable than a release, and that her son on the English throne was worth more than her own survival. But there was a problem. Mary, Queen of Scots, was not a victim who stumbled into martyrdom. Mary Stuart, born December the 8th, 1542, Queen of Scotland at 6 days old, sent to the French court at 5, not as an exile, as a diplomatic asset, educated at the most sophisticated Renaissance court in Europe, fluent in French, Latin, Italian, Spanish, and Scots, trained in music, poetry, horsemanship, and rhetoric. She was used as a political instrument before she was old enough to understand the transaction. The people using her were not subtle about it.
She returned to Scotland at 18, a widow, a queen, a Catholic sovereign in a newly Protestant realm, and governed with a pragmatism that surprised everyone who expected her to engineer Catholic restoration. She retained Protestant advisors. She tolerated the new religious settlement. For several years, she governed with a sophistication her enemies found more difficult to attack than piety would have been.
The marriages destroyed her. Not because she was romantic and foolish, though she was at times both, but because marriage was the only political instrument available to a female sovereign in the 16th century, and every option was a trap. Darnley strengthened her claim to the English throne and proved to be violent, paranoid, and ultimately murderable. Bothwell, whatever she felt, whatever he forced, was politically catastrophic in a way no rational actor would have chosen. She was a sophisticated intelligence operator who made catastrophic personal decisions. Those are not contradictory. They are the portrait of a specific kind of person, brilliant in the abstract, vulnerable in the immediate, operating in a system that offered no good options and punished her for the bad ones.
I was good at the long game. I was not always good at the room I was standing in. Darnley was a mistake I could see while I was making it. Bothwell was a mistake I could not. By the time I understood the room, I was already in the next one. The next one was Loch Leven, and then England, and then Fotheringhay. The rooms got smaller. The game did not.
The fatal flaw was not romanticism. It was the structural impossibility of her position. A female sovereign in the 16th century had two instruments of power, marriage and dynastic legitimacy. Both were compromised, one by murder, one by scandal, both by the specific misogyny of an era that held female rulers to a standard of personal conduct no male sovereign was required to meet. She was not destroyed by weakness. She was destroyed by a system that had decided before she arrived that a Catholic female sovereign was an institutional problem that needed to be solved. Fotheringhay was the solution. The crimson dress was not defeat. It was the only form of victory still available to her, the conversion of her execution into an argument that would outlast Elizabeth, outlast the scaffold, outlast the axe. She understood that the image of her death would travel further and last longer than any cipher she had ever written. She was right.
Here is what the wig tells you. I chose it. I knew what was under it. Short, grey hair. The hair of a woman 19 years in captivity. When the executioner lifted my head and the wig came away, the crowd saw what Elizabeth had done to me. Not what I had done, what she had done. 19 years of it, visible in a single image. I could not have planned that moment, but I chose the wig. I understood what was under it. I wore it anyway. The executioner did the rest.
The execution required 3 attempts. The first axe blow missed her neck and struck the back of her skull. The second severed the neck almost completely, leaving a piece of sinew attached. The executioner used the axe as a saw to finish it. When he held the head aloft by its auburn hair and declared, "God save the Queen," the hair came away in his hand. It was a wig. Her actual head fell to the scaffold floor. The crowd saw, for the first time, the short grey hair of a woman prematurely aged by 19 years of captivity. Her lips moved for 15 minutes after decapitation, documented by an eyewitness. Her dog, a small terrier that had hidden in her skirts during the execution, was found in the blood-soaked clothing afterward. It refused to leave her.
It had to be forcibly removed. Everything touched by her blood was burned in the castle fireplace that same afternoon. To prevent the collection of relics, her heart was removed and secretly buried within the castle grounds. Her body sealed in lead. Her son was informed by letter. Elizabeth's government spent the hours after the execution systematically erasing the physical evidence of what they had done. The powerful do not fear the act, they fear the evidence of it.
Here is the question 4 centuries of scholarship cannot answer. Mary used beer barrel correspondence before the Babington Plot. Walsingham had broken beer barrel correspondence before the Babington Plot. The decrypted letters confirm she had detailed knowledge of his surveillance capabilities and methods. She was the most careful intelligence operator in 16th century Europe for 19 years of active intelligence operation. She ran a cipher network that 50,000 words of active operation could not be detected within, not by Walsingham, not by anyone, until codebreakers in 2023 found it by accident in a French archive. And then she wrote the Babington letter, using a compromised method, to an agent she had reason not to fully trust, authorizing the assassination of a sitting monarch in a letter that Walsingham intercepted, deciphered, and added a postscript to, and she signed it anyway. The question is not whether she made an error. The question is whether someone who had not made a fatal error in 19 years of active intelligence operation suddenly made one by accident. In 1586, Mary was 43 years old. Her son had abandoned her. Her health was failing. She had run out of moves. A living Mary in 1586 was a Catholic figurehead whose value to continental powers was declining. A martyred Mary in 1587 was an argument that could travel across Catholic Europe and position James as the heir to both thrones he eventually inherited. She won. That is the forensic fact. She died a traitor's death, and her son became King of England 16 years later. The question that cannot be answered: was the Babington letter the mistake that ended her, or was it the move that completed the game? But before you go, tell me what you think. Did Mary, Queen of Scots, sacrifice herself so her son could wear the English crown? Or was she simply a woman who ran out of road? History recorded her death, but only you can decide what it meant. Drop your theory in the comments. Subscribe to Dead Confession. See you next week.